Are you totally different when it comes to sex and copulation? Have you judged yourself out of receiving pleasure? Have you judged yourself into receiving pleasure in certain ways and excluded other ways? Would you like to know more about what else is possible with bodies? Would you like to create confidence in the bedroom and beyond? How has your sex life or lack of it affected other areas of your life? Everyone has the potency to be a sexual superhero. Get ready to listen, sense, and play with the sexualness that is you. Now, here's the host of The Pleasure Zone, pleasure diva and body whisperer, Milica Jelenic.
Good evening, sweet pleasure seekers. Welcome to The Pleasure Zone. You know you found the pleasure zone when we start talking crazy talk. We start talking about sex and bodies and more sex and more bodies and pleasure, and when we do have pleasure and we don't have pleasure, and what's stopping that and what's creating that and all that jazz. So that's what we're talking about tonight too. We're actually talking about a topic close to my heart, close to my heart, and close to the hearts of so many women I know who have had children. So the topic tonight is going to be postpartum sex, the do's and don'ts. Some are ones you've heard about before, and some are not so much. So what is postpartum, for one? Most people might not even know what we're talking about. Well, postpartum is after the parting of the baby from your body. So whether the baby is alive or has passed on, postpartum just means the baby has left your body. So there's a few things that can occur with postpartum is that, you could have lost your baby, and that's another topic completely, but I may talk a little bit about that. As I was just saying the title, I realized that I hadn't included that in some of my points to kind of point out. So awareness on the fly. I love when awareness on the fly shows up. But we are going to talk about life with, having the baby in your life with your body after having a baby, with your partner's body, with your partner, with your body. How do you deal with having this baby and your hormones, and your body's all weird for you, it's all different, and your body's going to be different for your partner as well. It's like a whole new world. What do you do? How do you survive through this? I was actually watching, I love Netflix, as you guys have, if you've ever listened to my show, I reference things on Netflix quite often, and I was watching a stand-up comic last night because I needed some laughs in my life. Sometimes I just need some laughs in my life. Not because my life is depressing or something. It's just like, man, laugh therapy is great. It just moves my brain, and sometimes I stress my brain out. So I was having some laugh therapy with a comic. Her name is Tig, T-I-G, and she's freaking really dry, hilarious, and she's weird, and I really like her. I never heard of her before till last night. And she had a great postpartum joke, and I had to share it. I was like, how can I throw this in the show? And I just said, forget it. Let's just use it. So her and her partner, so she's in a lesbian relationship. Her and her partner had some babies, and at the time, the babies were 2 twin boys, and they were 3 months old. And her partner turned to her in the middle of the night one night, just as they were going to bed, I suppose, and turned to her. Her partner's name is Stephanie. Turns to Tig, says, Tig, how do you have sex with the baby? And Tig says, what? You don't. And her partner was like, what? If you didn't get the joke, think about it. No, guys, you don't have sex with babies, ever. Never. That's so not cool. I'm pretty sure it's illegal. Now, how do you have sex when you've had a baby is different than how do you have sex with a baby. So we're going to talk about how do you have sex when you've had a baby. We're not going to be talking about sex with babies. Okay, just to get you guys straight and back on track. I realize that my sense of humor is a little whack and sick, and so there you go. It's all good. So here's some questions to think about. Now, for one, did you actually just have a baby enter your life and it was like hanging out in your world? And sometimes the baby has just entered your life and it's through adoption, right? So there's some other stuff that might go on with that as well. And we're going to be talking about the postpartum, though, effects of the body. So once you've had the baby that actually came out of your body, what's going on for you. So a little different than what might be going on for your body when you've adopted, because you don't have all the same responses. Your vagina hasn't had the same stretching and all that going on. So we're going to talk about the physical stuff, about what occurs when you've had a baby physically move through your body, whether it's through cesarean or through vaginal delivery. So lots of interesting things occur. And also, what do you do to reconnect with your partner? Because there's, things change, and you barely sleep. You barely even know your own name, and sometimes you put diapers on your own head, and you don't even know what's going on. So really, you're just trying to function in the day. Never mind trying to have sex. You're just trying to get by. You're trying to survive. You're trying to get enough sleep to just know your own name sometimes, right? So we're just going to be looking at what can we do to get back on track with connecting with our bodies, number one, and then how do we add pleasure into that, right? So some real fundamental things we're going to look at, some things that are from the doc's perspective, some things from the medical's perspective, I should say, and then some things from my perspective, some things that I also think you need to have fair warning about, and some things that maybe if you're in the postpartum state that you maybe never asked, some questions that I asked, and some awarenesses that I had after having a child. And these are my awarenesses from my experience, so I'm sure you might have some of your own as well. Feel free to write them in comments on anywhere that you actually find this, wherever you find this radio show, whether it's live streaming right now to you or whether you're listening to it in a podcast later on. So one of the things, first and foremost, is if you have, been using an OBGYN during the birth, or if you've been using midwives, they'll usually monitor you and your progress and your healing rate as well. And they'll be looking at things like if you've had stitches, how well they're healing. You'll be looking at things like, how much has your uterus actually gone back to its normal size, looking at different things, making sure that your health of your body is moving along nicely. They're also going to look at things that are not genital related. They're going to look at things like your breasts and whether they have, whether you're actually lactating, or if you're breastfeeding, or if you're not breastfeeding, what's going on with your body. And there, sometimes I know with midwives, I can only do reference with midwives because I use midwives. They also will ask a lot about your mental health state of affairs, whether you're having postpartum depression or what's going on for you. Because a lot of times things like postpartum depression will certainly contribute to a lack of sex drive. And how do you know if you've got that? Well, a lot of that just comes down to having conversations with a professional to kind of evaluate where you're at and whether you qualify as having postpartum depression. For me, I did have postpartum depression, but I didn't even know I had it for the first 2 years. I didn't even know I had it until I was out of it. I just knew I was exhausted, I wanted to cry all the time, and I was slightly suicidal. But I honestly did not, and I know it's kind of crazy, and I'd been in therapy for 14, at that time 12 years prior to actually, prior to having this experience. I'd had all this background information about mental health. I studied psychology, so I knew what depression would qualify as, but I never would have evaluated myself as having postpartum depression. It wasn't in my reality because I was just trying to get by, and I just thought, oh, it's circumstantial. It's because, the biological dad's not contributing to me financially. That certainly contributes to some depression. And then there's a lot of hormonal stuff that goes on. And somewhere in my knowing, somewhere in my intuitive part of my body and my brain knew that I could get myself out of whatever this funk was. And I nursed, and I nursed, and I nursed. I nursed until my daughter was 4. I nursed until one day I got so sick that I couldn't actually produce milk, and it was like my body's way. I swear it's like my body had to knock me out and practically send me to the grave in order for me to stop nursing. For me, it was my saving grace as well at the same time, because the hormones that kick in during nursing were keeping me sane. And it's ironically cute that when my daughter was about 6, she actually said to me, at one point. I said to her one day, I'm like, thanks for saving our life, for something that she had done. And she said to me in response, it's not the first time and it won't be the last. And I actually thought about the times when she was a baby and so many things when I would look at her, and it would pull me back into being present and being grateful, and then the thoughts of I'd rather die would go away, and that the nursing brought me sanity. It actually, as much as it stressed me out because I was up all the time, it also kicked in the vibes that had me feel like I was connected to something and I mattered and that I could contribute and that I was actually, doing something for somebody that was helping them live and help them feel better about themselves. So I'm not asking you guys to get sad about my story, because I know my story's not, for one, my story's changed, and for two, I know I'm not the only person who ever felt that way with a child or when they were nursing. And it's not always about postpartum depression, having your body feel like it's, just like really like not even wanting to be alive. The hormones can be such a contribution to that. Circumstances can be a contribution. Lack of information can contribute. So some things that I'm aware of is definitely postpartum depression is a massive cause of not feeling attractive or feeling any drive sexually. You know what's ironic? I didn't find that in any of my research on the internet. It's pretty funny that none of that, all the things they're talking about on the internet have to do with, have a different position, do your Kegel exercises, get yourself back on track, but nobody's looking at your mental health state and asking you what's actually going on for you. What's actually going on in your mind and in your feelings? What's actually going on there, because we're ignoring that and we're just going to the physical and trying to get your vagina back on track and get it in shape and get it back to working. And we're totally neglecting the fact that we're dealing with a human being who has feelings, emotions, and is, trying to survive and thrive in a way that's like you have somebody feeding off of you for one. It's like the life force is getting sucked out of you every few hours. And then at the same time, you're like kind of joyful that you're contributing life to this being. It's such a conflicting universe to be in. There's so much that goes on. So when you look at the picture of postpartum sex, please remember your mental health state. Where are you at? What's going on for you? Do you feel happy? Do you feel sad? Do you feel joyful? And you might have all of those feelings going up and down and all around. So make sure that you are looking at those aspects as well. And if you really feel like you can't make it through, definitely consult somebody, consult a professional. I ended up going into support groups. I was in, what did I do at the time? I was having some Reiki sessions as well. I've done a lot of Reiki previously to having my daughter. I was doing body work because I was actually training at the time to be a mitzvah technique teacher. So I was getting body work done when I was pregnant as well. I was getting energy work, body work. Oh, and I was going to I hadn't gone to hypnosis yet, but after having my daughter, I started going to hypnosis. And I did a bunch of other things, meditation. I was definitely trying my best to be on track. I was, doing the perfect diet, or so I thought. I was doing everything I thought was the best in the world. Being hit with postpartum depression threw me for a loop because I didn't even realize I had it until it was gone. And then when it was gone, I realized how down and dark it was getting in my mind. And even when I would talk to people about it, I wouldn't talk to them about it, quite frankly. So even when I was going to hypnosis and I was doing sessions, I actually lied to people and I said I was fine. I did not want to deal with it. I didn't want to deal with the depth of how upset I was. I didn't want to deal with the depth of how upset I was about who I was mad at and all that sort of stuff. I didn't really want to look at it. I have a great question in the chat room, which we will address. But I first would like to go to commercial break. So you're listening to The Pleasure Zone here on Inspired Choices Network. and we'll be right back after this commercial.
Many of us have created a lot of limitations around sex and what we are willing to choose. What else is possible beyond what we have already seen, heard, or thought of? What if now is the time for a totally different sexual revolution? Taking the taboo out of all aspects of sex, sexuality, and copulation by tuning in to the Pleasure Zone radio show with body whisperer Milica Jelenic. You'll receive tools, inspiration, and a foundation to allow yourself to receive more in your sex life and quite possibly other areas of your life as well. Listen for the Pleasure Zone with Milica every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
Are you a subject matter expert? Are you here to share your expertise with an audience waiting to hear from you in only the way you can deliver? Are you ready to have your voice amplified across the airwaves? Inspired Choices Network has a global radio platform streaming to millions of people across the world. Professionally produced and supported by an accomplished team every step of the way, you can broadcast from anywhere in the world, knowing your voice matters, and we ensure it is delivered with ease and efficiency. Eager to hear your message, the world awaits. Contact us today to become an Inspired Choices Network radio host. Email becomeahost@inspiredchoicesnetwork.com.
This is the Pleasure Zone with body whisperer Milica Jelenic. To participate in the program today, please call in the U.S. Call 815-880-8255. That's TALK. Or Canada 613-800-8736. Or you can Skype us at Inspired Choices Network. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email at milicajelenic.com. Now back to the program.
Hello, sweet pleasure seekers. Welcome back to the Pleasure Zone. Today we're talking about postpartum sex, the do's and don'ts. The first little segment was actually completely, totally inspired by a thought I had right after I talked about the title. So we talked a bit about postpartum depression, actually, and how that affects your sex drive. A lot of times it gives you a zero sex drive. So one of the questions in the chat room is, why is it that doctors are often misdiagnosing this, and why are they misdiagnosing it so often? I can't say for sure from their perspective. From my awareness, I think what's going on is most doctors have very limited time with their patients. So in Canada, they get like their 10 to 15 minutes with a patient. And you get to go in with one issue and you deal with one issue, and then you have to make another appointment to go back and deal with another issue. A lot of people don't have a rapport with their doctors enough where they feel comfortable enough telling their doctors what's really going on with them. They're also, I know for me, from my perspective, I didn't want to tell my doctors because I didn't want to be given any antidepressants. And I knew if I even remotely said that I was depressed, that I would be written an antidepressant in a heartbeat. I knew that because of not my own personal experience, but the experience of other people I knew. My mom ended up with antidepressants once because she broke up with a boyfriend, and she was crying in a doctor's office because it happened to be like within the hour of breaking up with somebody. But her tears were tears of relief, and the doctor didn't ask that. The doctor just gave her a prescription, and when she went to go get it filled out, they looked at her like she was nuts, and she's like, "What is this for?" And they wouldn't tell her. And she said, "Then don't fill it. I don't want it." And then the pharmacist looked at her again and questioned her and tried to calm her down because they thought it was like antipsychotics and antidepressants they gave her. Why? She was crying. So I tried my darndest not to show doctors how I was feeling because I really did not want to be medicated for it. So anybody who has any iota of awareness will probably not show their doctors any of it because they're not interested in the medication. And also the lack of rapport, lack of trust. in the system, in the doctors. I think that's a huge contribution, and I think also doctors have a limited amount of time to be able to deal with their patients and to actually ask them what's going on. So my midwives had more time with me, but I also still didn't trust them enough to tell them what was going on, because I also didn't want to have them being suspicious of me. So I had also reason to not trust them, which was that on my intake information when I went to go see the midwives, they asked a lot of questions, and I was very honest with them about my information, and I did tell them at the time that my daughter's biological dad was an alcoholic. I would say he was not a recovering alcoholic, because at the time he was still an active alcoholic, actively drinking regularly. So that was on the report. And so after I had my daughter, and when I was in hospital with her, I had CAS, which is the Canadian system who look after and watch over children. I had them come in and check on me on a daily basis to make sure I wasn't abusing my child and I wasn't abusing myself, because they didn't understand on the intake form that it said that I was part of a support group, because I was part of Al-Anon, even though that's supposed to be a secret, secret information. I was part of Al-Anon, which is a group for families and friends of alcoholics. So they didn't know the difference between me being in Al-Anon and me being in AA, and so they followed me, thinking that I was going to harm my child, thinking I was an active alcoholic, also thinking the father is an active alcoholic, which was true. So they were on me a lot daily, watched me every minute with my daughter, pretty much every minute, except for at like midnight feedings and like 2 and 4 a.m. feedings. But during the day, CAS watched me for 6 days, actually. So I didn't trust my midwives because I felt like they betrayed me in giving over information that was not relevant to the situation, because he wasn't present for feedings anyway at the hospital. He wasn't really present anyway, let's face it. That's what happens a lot with alcoholism. So it was a situational thing that I didn't trust my midwives, and I didn't trust doctors because I had one and he didn't show up on time. So I had my midwives were my midwives. So I think having somebody that you can trust to talk to is really helpful. And also somebody that not only you trust, but will listen to what you desire. And if you really, truly desire medication for it, that they'll listen to you and help you get that. And if you truly don't desire medication for it, that they might help you find alternatives that can assist you with that. So I had some background information. I'd already had, at that point when I had my daughter, I already had about 16 years of meditating under my belt. Different kinds, like 7 different kinds of meditation I'd, worked with, studied, played with. I knew body work, I knew energy work, I knew some stuff. I had some background skills I could use. And, even when we're at the best of our best, we forget, right? And we forget that we're on a planet with other human beings and that we can talk to people. So it took me a really long time to actually trust people. And it took me a really long time to be able to even say, oh, yeah, after I had my daughter, I had postpartum depression. She was like 7 years old by the time I finally said it to somebody. I really didn't think it was relevant, but I do get that there's validity in this information because a lot of women are denying it. They're making themselves wrong. And then they're saying, to their husband they don't want sex, and their husband's like, well, it's been like a year since your kid, and your body is still like, no, man, something's going on, and I'm not doing okay. But if you don't have somebody that you trust to talk to about it, that will, give you options or give you whatever you're looking for, find somebody that's your comrade in arms that's going to assist you out of this, somebody that's got your back. And if you really don't have that, honestly, I got your back 110%, so locate me, find me. You can find me on my website. Just write to me and say, it's regarding postpartum depression. I will talk to you. I will talk to you for free about that if you need some assistance. I'll give you like half an hour of my time for free if you just need to talk. You got my attention. So I know this happens a lot, and I know that there's a need for more support on that front. So actually in my list I did list support groups in terms of people to look to talk to about what's going on with you can be really helpful. So if you are feeling like you're like, oh my God, what's wrong with me? Why don't I feel like having sex? It's been 2 or 3 years. Looking to support groups, people you can talk to. You might find that you're not the only one in that boat. Your body might be like giving you signals because your body's like, no more kids, don't want to change more diapers, can't do this, need sleep, alert, alert, alert. Your body is probably sending you signals to say no because your body knows stuff. So it's just letting you know things that you might not be willing to acknowledge. So visiting like your OBGYN or midwife for them to just check on the physical things is a great idea. And then also, as you start to step back into the possibility of having sex, doing things like using birth control of any kind is pretty smart, especially if you're going with what doctors are saying now is after 1 month you can go back to having sex. When I had my daughter, they were suggesting 3 months. And you know what my recommendation is? Listen to your body. Your body knows. If your body's telling you a year, 2 years, 3 years, if you keep checking on a regular basis and your body's like, nah, just go with it. And please don't make yourself wrong. You don't think that you have to go out and get tested for, are my hormones fucked up? Like everybody's forever running to the doctor to see if their hormones are messed up. Do you know you have like hundreds of hormones in your body? It's not just the ones that get you horny. So yes, they might be different. They might be changed. You produced a child in your body. That's an amazing thing. And it takes a lot of things to contribute to that body being, produced. So, yeah, you might have something going on with your hormones, but don't run for that. Don't like run out the door and go, I need to get my hormones checked. You know what? First, become acquainted with your body and have a relationship with it and honor it, right? And if your body's just saying no, cool, honor it. If your body's saying no, and I would like more information, follow that trail. Follow that whisper that your body's saying, no, I'm not interested in sex right now, but there's something. I'm not sure what that is. And your body might be like, you know what I would like? Oh, I'd like a back rub. You know what I would like? I'd like a foot rub. You know what I'd like? I'd like somebody to just kiss me from head to toe. You know what I'd really like? Oh, I'd like somebody to just stroke my clit for like 10 minutes. That's what I'd really like. So when you get to like what your body would really like, and it may not be penetration because your vulva might still be swollen, and your vagina might also be swollen. It might still be like, nah. My daughter was just over 4 years old when my body said, okay, you go for it. Every single part of my being was completely repulsion, if that's even a concept you can fathom for me, absolute repulsion over sex. With my daughter's biological dad, it was absolute repulsion. It was like you could have slathered him in whipped cream and chocolate, and I still would have been like, can't do that. And I know what it was for me. It was a lack of trust, 110%. I didn't trust him, and for me, trust is a major turn on. Trust is like aphrodisiac. If you didn't listen to my episode on aphrodisiacs, have a listen, because trust for me is an aphrodisiac. So that's something to just, keep in mind. One of the things that I also had a bit of a repulsion around was lack of assistance. So it was like I didn't trust him as a person because he chronically lied to me, but I also had a thing where I didn't trust him because he wouldn't help me out with my daughter. He resented every second of it. He's like, why don't we just get a nanny? I'm like, how about you go F off? He actually had no money, but he was always willing to spend mine, which also made me resent him. So there was a lot of contributing factors that just made me not attracted to him. And then at some point I had a sense of, really strange sense of guilt come over me, and I didn't have a lot of information about it at the time, but I do now. And at the time I had this, strange amount of guilt come over me, so I said yes. And at the same time, it was kind of interesting because it led it led to a change in relationship with her biological dad, which also led to a breakup, which was one of the greatest gifts I ever was given, which led to an amazing person coming into my life who's my current husband. So it's like you never really know what's going on with these giant stories, but something does show up. And truly, when you honor your sex drive, it's so smart. Your vagina knows and listen to it, like Mama G says, in Pussy a Reclamation. Just like put your hand on your pussy and ask her questions. She knows stuff, and she will give you information. And if you honor when you would like sex or not like sex, it'd be such a great gift, right? So that's a note we're going to actually use to go off to our next commercial break. So you're listening to The Pleasure Zone here on Inspired Choices Network, and we'll be right back after this commercial.
Many of us have created a lot of limitations around sex and what we are willing to choose. What else is possible beyond what we have already seen, heard, or thought of? What if now is the time for a totally different sexual revolution, taking the taboo out of all aspects of sex, sexuality, and copulation by tuning in to the Pleasure Zone radio show with body whisperer Milica Jelenic. You'll receive tools, inspiration, and a foundation to allow yourself to receive more in your sex life and quite possibly other areas of your life as well. Listen for The Pleasure Zone with Milica every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
Are you a healer or coach? Have you been craving having sessions and haven't had the time? You know that you can be a greater gift when you look after you. Is now the time? Join a group of beautiful healers and coaches, men and women from around the world at a quaint retreat in Prince Edward County, Ontario, Canada, April 5th through 8th, 2019. Enjoy great food, trades with colleagues, and professionally led group sessions. What would your life be like if you gifted this to you? For more information, contact Milica at www.milicajelenic.com.
This is The Pleasure Zone with body whisperer Milica Jelenic. To participate in the program today, please call in the U.S. Call 815-880-8255. That's TALK. Or Canada, 613-800-8736. Or you can Skype us at Inspired Choices Network. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email at milicajelenic.com. Now back to the program.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Pleasure Zone. We're talking about postpartum sex tonight. And, for the last little section, we've been talking a lot about the psychological that can kind of have you not feel like you're feeling too sexy, like what's preventing you from getting back in the sack. And I know I've talked many times about, many times actually about how one of the greatest turn-on for me is the mind. Like I love brilliance, and I love great thoughts, and I love having clarity of mind and being insightful, and I find that like really attractive in people. And so for me, it's like when I can have that clarity of my own mind, I feel like I'm also more attractive, which is helpful. So getting your mental state on track and really like evaluating what's going on for you, what's going on emotionally, psychologically. What are you thinking? What sparked that? When did that originate? Where is that coming from? Would you like to change it? So, if something's coming up and, if your partner, for example, is saying things to you and my God, do they ever sound like you're one of your parents? If they're nagging you about something, you never stay on track, you're never focused, you can certainly start to feel like, why would I have sex with my mom or dad? That's so not attractive. So when your partner starts sounding like one of your parents, you might not be attracted to them either. Just something to keep in mind. So as a partner, you might want to stop sounding like your partner's parents. Just a thought. stop being your partner's parents, because that's just not attractive. Who wants to have sex with their mom and dad? I personally don't know anybody who wants to have sex with their mom and dad, but if you do know people, that's cool. You can tell me if you want. You don't have to. But it's just not a common. It's just like not a common thing I found in the world. So, yeah, good times. So, definitely address the psychological. Definitely address the emotional stuff that's going on. And then when that's addressed, and again, if you want somebody to talk to and you don't know anyone, contact me. I'll give you half an hour for definitely message and put in the header postpartum talk, and we can talk about that. And men, you count too for postpartum talk, men and women who are partners of whoever had the baby, because you're going to have a whole other discussion of what's going on for you, how you might feel rejected, neglected, all of that stuff. So either side of the picture of the story, if you guys are going through this as partners and you want to talk, that counts too. So let's assume that we've dealt with all of the psychological, emotional stuff, and your body is just kind of like, I don't know about sex because the last time I did this, I had a baby. And your body might be like, I don't know if I want another baby, I don't know. And there might be some fear factor going on. So again, that's a little bit of the emotional, and so you might start to deal with that. So what I recommend is the senses. I love using the senses as an example of everything. So start with something like touch. Keeping it really, really simple. Starting to develop like a connection with your partner again through simple touch, either holding hands. You could be watching a movie and you're just holding hands. Arm around the shoulder. Shoulder rubs, especially if, you're nursing your shoulders. Sometimes even when you have the best nursing pillows around, I could have had 3 stacked. I have such a long torso. But if you have if you have sore shoulders from nursing or sore body in general and you just need a massage and your partner is willing to gift that, it can be such a great gift. Even just massaging the opening of the vagina with no point of view, with no, we're doing this to get it on. If your partner can just do it with love and kindness and caring and lots of lube on top of that, it can start to have your body relax and ease into having touch again. So that's something to play with is the vaginal massage. And there are people who teach that. So if you don't know what to do and you don't know how to do that, you can look that up. I'm pretty sure YouTube has videos, and I'm pretty sure if you Google that, you'll find courses and stuff that are available. So let's move on to taste as we're moving through all of the different senses. So you might notice that, your partner's body tastes different once, if your partner's if you've given birth and your partner is licking you, they might be like, wow, you taste different. You probably will. There's a lot of different hormones going on. Your body will give off different scents also so that your baby recognizes you and will be attracted to eating from you. So I recommend before, if you're at that phase of the game where your vulva still isn't quite ready for penetration, licking other areas, licking and kissing through that kind of version of taste can be really sweet. So whether it's like kissing the back of the legs into the crease behind the knee, up the legs, and all over the body. And if you're kissing areas that are not even directly the vulva, sweet. Like you could be kissing everywhere. Yes, if you are nursing, sometimes you will squirt milk. Well, enjoy it. It's just milk. And you'll probably produce more. So the thing that we often forget is that sex doesn't have to be all about penetration. It can often be actually just about getting the bodies back to being turned on and bringing awareness to the body and allowing your partner to ease into receiving again. Once you've received a baby and you've pushed that out, your body can sometimes be like, I just need a little space. I just need some time. I just need some healing. I just need some sweetness. So having a conversation with your body to see what it would like, and then having your partner ease into gifting that to you, And you might not know what you like, so start slow. Definitely start slow. Start with just reconnecting, hand on hand, hand on heart. Looking in each other's eyes is a great thing to do. Another thing with the eyes is like visual adoration is what I wrote down. And I think what shows up a lot for women after they've had babies is that they feel like their bodies have been distorted, and they have sort of a distorted sense of self-image as well. And they might not feel so sexy. So from a partner perspective, be honest with the person who's just given birth. Honest not in the sense of, oh my God, you look fat, but honest as in, wow, your eyes are so shiny. Wow, I love this part of, find the parts that you adore and emphasize that. If there are parts that you're like, if you're having a hard time adjusting in your head that your wife just gave birth and that, you're like, wow, her uterus is still gigantic and look at that belly. Or you're like, wow, that's some swollen vulva you've got. Maybe avoid talking about all the parts that might make her feel like she's morphed into something unattractive, and talk about the parts that you adore. Like, wow, you've got such beautiful eyes, or, love the nape of your neck, or, whatever it is, to start to get you as a partner to be turning her body on with adoration of the things that you see. What do you see in her that, you adore? And it can be like, wow, it's so beautiful watching you nurse our child, which I didn't get that. I got a lot of, oh my God, you're nursing her again, what the hell? So what I know would work is pretty much the exact opposite of what I was given. So being given kindness would be sweet, and being given compliments and being given anything that would have a person feel adored. Yeah. What adoration can you give to your partner? So what do you see in them? And smelling them, like I'm a huge fan of the smells. So like I've told you guys many times before, I love smelling an armpit of my lover. It's just awesome. And so that's what's fun for me. So, having some smell connection too, bringing all your senses back so you reconnect with your lover. And sound. And I think one of the sexiest qualities next to having a fabulous brain is somebody who's willing to truly listen to you. They're willing to sit down, be present, take the time and listen to you is an amazing gift. And whether that's, a friend who's willing to do that or your lover, but, having and being heard is such an amazing gift. So I have this show where I get to be heard. Why? Because it turns me on to be heard. And if that means I got to make a radio show every week for you guys so I can be heard, so be it. If you like to be turned on by being heard too, get a radio show on our station. You're going to be heard on like 50 platforms. Come on, just choose it. So that's just a little side note. So taking control as well through things like I mentioned earlier, like different ways of having birth control, whether it's condoms or you can actually get pills that are suited for postpartum if you're still nursing. Like there's a bunch of things that they have now. So see what works for you. And I did mention lots of lubrication there when I was mentioning the vaginal massage. Definitely use lots of lubrication as the whole vulva and vagina are healing and the swelling is being reduced. You want to use and especially if there's been any stitches. Those stitches and that scar tissue can hurt for years. Like the scar tissue I have still on certain angles can be like, ooh, that's pinchy. So, make sure you know what's comfortable for you and use your words and actually talk to your partner. Communication, super sexy. So lots of fun things to consider. Also, just a really general sort of easy, smart move is to do either Kegel exercises, and if you don't know what they are, you can look those up, Kegel exercises. They're where you're basically holding the muscle like as if you're stopping peeing and then releasing. It's a pelvic floor exercise, and it strengthens the vaginal muscles. you could do that version, or you could also follow Saida Desilets. That's SAIDA-DESILETS. She does something which she calls the jade egg, but she has an entire process prior to actually inserting the egg into your body that really has you connect with your body, with everything emotional going on, with the energetics of what's going on. And it can be incredibly healing, just that in itself, before inserting the jade egg and re-strengthening your pelvic floor muscles. So lots of great tools there. I have lots more information to share with you guys, so but we are going to go to a commercial break. So you're listening to The Pleasure Zone here on Inspired Choices Network, and we'll be right back after this commercial.
Many of us have created a lot of limitations around sex and what we are willing to choose. What else is possible beyond what we have already seen, heard, or thought of? What if now is the time for a totally different sexual revolution? Taking the taboo out of all aspects of sex, sexuality, and copulation by tuning in to the Pleasure Zone radio show with body whisperer Milica Jelenic. You'll receive tools, inspiration, and a foundation to allow yourself to receive more in your sex life and quite possibly other areas of your life as well. Listen for The Pleasure Zone with Milica every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
Are you a healer or coach? Have you been craving having sessions and haven't had the time? You know that you can be a greater gift when you look after you. Is now the time? Join a group of beautiful healers and coaches, men and women from around the world at a quaint retreat in Prince Edward County, Ontario, Canada, April 5th through 8th, 2019. Enjoy great food, trades with colleagues, and professionally led group sessions. What would your life be like if you gifted this to you? For more information, contact Milica at www.milicajelenic.com.
This is The Pleasure Zone with body whisperer Milica Jelenic. To participate in the program today, please call in the U.S. Call 815-880-8255. That's TALK. Or Canada, 613-800-8736. Or you can Skype us at Inspired Choices Network. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email at milicajelenic.com. Now back to the program.
Hello, sweet pleasure seekers. Welcome back to the Pleasure Zone. Tonight, we're talking about postpartum sex, some do's and don'ts. And we've been talking a lot about the psychological stuff. We've been talking about some of the physical stuff and how to get back on track, some tips and tools. Some things I'd like to talk about are some of the don'ts. And I kind of mentioned some don'ts, but maybe I mentioned them in a way that was more obscure. So I'd like to be really clear on what some of the don'ts are in my point of view. So one of the don'ts I would say is don't rush into anything because your partner pressures you. And I had a lot of guilt tripping from my daughter's biological dad. He would guilt trip regularly to the point where it was just obnoxious. So, the guilt tripping, the pressure, what I know is that if you don't guilt trip and you don't pressure, you got a better chance of getting results. Also, peer pressure too. So sometimes you end up in these mommy baby groups or parental child groups, and you hear parents talk about everything in those groups, and sometimes you'll hear other parents going, "Oh yeah, it took us like 4 months until we started having sex again," and blah blah blah, and they make it seem like it was like really long and blah blah blah. And I would just sit there and I'd be like, "Yeah, not choosing it." I had a lot of defiance about choosing it. Also, my body was like, no freaking way to to the person at the time as well. So I think my body was really trying to find a way to make him leave, and not giving sex would be one of them. So something to check into for yourself as well. So if peer pressure is something that you find yourself susceptible to, maybe grow a backbone before you have a baby, because if you're susceptible to peer pressure, you're going to become one of those parents that gets stepped on by your child, but also by their parent. So grow a backbone, and if you need to learn how to grow a backbone, you can have a little practice session with me on how to grow a backbone. It can be a lot of fun. And one of the ways is just learn how to say no. And just look in the mirror and say no. And randomly say no to people about things that don't even matter. Like if they're like, can I have water? No. Can I go to bed now? No. And just start saying no about everything. And it just becomes fun. And no does not become threatening, like it's going to sever everything, all your limbs and all your relationships. It's just no. It's just fun. So I have a comment from my producer and friend in the chat room. Christine says that there should be a class on how to grow a backbone. I agree. Maybe I'll create a class on how to grow a backbone. I actually did have to learn how to grow a backbone. So, and I started to grow a backbone before I had my daughter, but then the backbone got stronger and stronger as she got older and other things were going on. So, yeah, some things will get you a backbone. And some things, if you're choosing it, will make that backbone stronger and stronger. So another thing I suggest is don't judge yourself. For some reason I put that as number 3, but I think it should be number 1. Don't judge yourself. Don't judge yourself for how you look, how you're behaving, what you're sounding like, looking like, feeling like. Just don't judge yourself. Don't judge yourself as, oh my God, I'm so the perfect mother, or oh my God, I'm so not the perfect mother. No, none of that. Can you just be space with what's going on and be present with your body? And when you start thinking you're the perfect mother, then you're like, oh yeah, I got that right. Then you're going to keep on trying to do it the same way over and over and over again. But you're not always going to get the same result as you did the first time. There's no like, this is how you parent, ABCs. If you're with any kid who's even somewhat conscious, you're going to have to evolve with that. So not judging yourself is really key. Not judging your body and not judging your choices. So not judging your choice to say if you don't want to have sex with your partner, don't judge yourself for it. Cool. Just become aware of what is it that you are like what is it that you're not choosing? Like, oh, I'm not choosing it. Oh, I understand. I'm not choosing unkindness. Look at me. I'm a genius. Oh, I'm not choosing somebody I don't trust. Oh, genius me. You start to get how actually genius you are, your brilliance, and your self-preservation and self-value starts to kind of go up and up and up. I got 2 minutes left to give you guys a few more tips. Yay! So number 4 on my list of don'ts is don't take everyone's advice. Because a lot of times their advice didn't even work for them, might not work for you, and you don't even have to take my advice. But if you like any of my advice, use it. And if you don't, get your own advice. What works for you? So I know that's hilarious after an entire show of advice, but really, truly, I truly believe that if my advice doesn't work for you, then find advice that does work for you. Not all of the advice is going to work for everyone. And also, don't buy any lies that you're not good enough, sexy enough, smart enough, or any of that stuff. And if you want T-shirts on that, my friend and I, Christine, have T-shirts on Don't Buy the Lie. You can have T-shirts that go with that. Don't buy the lie. We have like a whole like set of them. They're awesome. And also another don't, which may throw you for a loop, is don't avoid sex if you really want it. If your body's like, oh my God, I'm so horny, I just want to get it on. Just listen to that body. Your body knows something. And your body might be like, oh my God, I want to get it on, but it's not with your partner. Guess what, body? Your body might know something. Follow your knowing. Follow your smart body. It knows stuff. Ask your body questions. Ask your body a lot of questions. Remember, body, would you still like to play with this partner? And ask your vagina, ask your vulva, pussy, would you like to have sex with this person? Would you like to? Maybe, maybe not. Keep asking those questions. Your pussy knows. Put your hand on there.
Thank you for choosing to listen to The Pleasure Zone. Milica Jelenic will return next Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Mountain, and 5 p.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. We hope you'll join us. Until then, have the best week of your life by choosing to be turned on and tuned in to your body.